Welcome to Regime Technologies. I am Venkat. This is part 19 of ASP.NET video series. In this session, we'll learn about mapping virtual path to a physical path using server.mapPath method. Now, before we do anything, let's create an ASP.NET web application project and understand what we mean by physical path and virtual path. Now here I have a simple ASP.NET web application project that I have created, and within this project I have a page, and the web form is called as page and root directory. So first let's understand what we mean by root directory or root web application directory. Okay, now this project should have been physically created somewhere on the hard disk. Okay, so how do we find out what is the folder in which this project is physically created? Right click on the folder and select open folder in Windows Explorer. That should open up the physical folder where we have this project created. Now if you look at this, it's present in C:\sampleweb/sampleweb. If you look at the name of the project, it's sampleweb. And if you look at the name of the solution, it's also sampleweb. And that's the reason why we have two sampleweb folders here. One sampleweb folder is for the solution folder, and the other one is the actual web application project folder. So for this web application project, the root directory is C:\sampleweb/sampleweb, as you can see here. Okay, so that's the root directory, and this is the physical path where we actually have this particular file, page and root directory.aspx. Now if the user has to view this file in a browser, then let's try to view this in a browser. Right click on that and say view in browser. Now you should see that file in the browser window. So this address that you type here in the browser window is the virtual path. Okay, so meaning this path really does not exist. This is being served by the web server. Okay, so this is the virtual path, and to this path there is a physical path associated, okay, which is nothing but if you want to see this page, you're typing this virtual path in the browser window. Okay, but this file, this page and root directory.aspx, this has to reside somewhere physically on the hard disk. So what's that physical path? So we will see how to use the server.mapPath method to map the physical path, or to map this virtual path to a physical path. Okay, so let's look at that with an example. And to understand the server.mapPath method, because it can be used in several different ways depending on the characters that we pass in for the virtual path, let's actually understand that with an example. So I want to create our web application project to have this structure. So within the root directory, I want to add categories and electronics folders. So let's go ahead and add them. To add that, right click on the project. I'm going to add a folder called electronics or categories, and within categories, electronics is a category, so let's add a folder there. Let's call this electronics, and then to this folder, if you look at this, we are adding page and electronics folder. So let's add a web form. So to this folder, if I have to add a web form, I can select, right click, add new item, select the web form, and let's call page and electronics folder. So let's give that name. So page and electronics folder. Let's click add. So we have that web form there. Another thing that we want to do, we want to add data, countries, and countries.xml. So let's add those folders. So I'm gonna right click on the project, add, let's call this data, and to this we need to add another folder, and let's call that countries. So add that folder, and then to this let's add countries.xml. Add a new item. I want to add an XML file. Let's call this countries.xml. Okay, in this countries.xml, let me copy and paste a sample XML that I have here. Okay, so if you look at this, it simply displays the country ID and country name. It has data about the countries. Okay, now let's see how we can use the server.mapPath method. Now if you look at this, the server.mapPath method returns the physical path for a given virtual path. This method can be used in several different ways depending on the characters that we use in the virtual path. So let's say if you look at this, I have a page here, page in electronics folder, and if you look at the hierarchy of this page, it's present in electronics folder, which is present in categories, and this folder is present in the root directory of the project. Sample web is the root directory. Okay, now within this page, if I go to the ASPX page, and let's use this response.write method to write something onto the web form, and I'm going to say response.write, and we are using the server.mapPath method. And if you look at the method in the help text here, it returns the physical path that corresponds to the specified virtual path on the web server. So to the map path method, I'm just passing in dot. Okay, so let's see what that returns. And then just to have an HTML break, I am using the break there. Okay, so now let's run this. Look at this, pay attention here, page in electronics folder, this is present at this path. Now when I pass dot to the server.mapPath method, look at that, it gives me the current directory of the executing page. So if you look at this page in electronics folder.aspx, it's present in electronics folder, which is present in categories, so electronics categories, which is present in sample web. Sample web is the root directory here. Okay, and rest of the path that we get. So the dot symbol gives you the the physical path of the current executing page. Since this page is in electronics folder, you will get the complete path until that current folder when you use the dot symbol. Okay, now let's say I want to get to the categories folder. Then how do I do that? Now you are in the current directory. The current directory is electronics, but I want to get to the categories folder, the parent directory of the executing page. So how do we do that? You can use dot dot for that. Let's see that. So if I pass in here dot dot, and if I run this now, it gives us the parent directory of the current executing page. So I get to the categories page. Okay, now how do I get to the root directory of my web application project? The root directory is sample web. So how do I get to the root directory? There are actually two ways to get to the root directory, and the commonly used way to get to the root directory of a web application is to use a character called tilde character. Okay, so let's copy and paste this. So this is the tilde character. Okay, so this tilde character resolves the virtual path to the root directory of the web application project. And we know the root directory of this web application project is c:\sampleweb\sampleweb. So if we run this now, you should see the root directory. So remember, these three symbols are commonly used. Dot to get to the current directory of the executing page, dot dot to get to the parent directory, and tilde character to get to the root directory of the web application project. Another way to actually get to the root directory, currently we are 2 levels deep in the hierarchy of the folders, as far as this page is concerned. Now if I want to get to the root directory, the simplest way is to use the tilde character. Or another way, we know that if we use dot, we get to the current directory, but whereas if we use dot dot, we get to the parent directory. And then if I use dot dot again, I get to the parent directory of this directory, which is nothing but the root directory of the web application project. So to get to the root directory from this page, I can either use tilde character, or I can use dot dot / dot dot. Okay, so if we run this now, you should see the root directory. The last statement should also give you the root directory as expected. Okay, but remember, tilde symbol is usually used to get to the root directory of the web application project. So as you can see here, server.mappath dot returns the current physical directory of the page that you are running, whereas dot dot returns the parent directory of the executing page, whereas tilde returns the physical path of the root directory of the application. In our next video session, we'll actually look at a practical application of this server.map path method. We have this countries.xml. We'll try to read the data and display that in a drop-down list from a page that we are here, and then this page in root directory.aspx. Now if you look at this another simple example here, if you go to the page in root directory, this page is already in the root directory. Okay, so on this page, if you exactly copy paste this code, let's try to copy paste this code. Okay, we know that dot will give the current directory, dot dot will give the parent directory. Now this directory doesn't have a parent directory because this is the root directory of the web application project. Outside the scope of the web application project, you cannot navigate. That's why this line will throw an error. Let's actually run this application and see what's going to happen. This will actually throw an error at this point of time because you're already in the root directory and you're trying to navigate out of the root directory. That's why you get that error. Okay, but whereas, let's comment that. Now tilde will always give us the root directory no matter how deep you are in the hierarchy. It will give you the root directory, so this works fine. But again, this one is going to throw an error because dot dot will try to resolve to the parent directory. We are already in the root directory. Beyond that we cannot navigate. That's why we get an error if we have this line. So let's comment that. But dot should give you the current directory. Current directory is nothing but the root directory, and tilde will give you the root directory. So now if we run that, in both the cases we should get the root directory of our application. Okay. On this slide you can find resources for ASP.NET C# and SQL Server interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.